instead of 7. So welcome, and always happy to be here. My name is Arianna Mendo, for those who do not know me.
I am Enrico Gelain, and we are here to talk again about the Canary Islands and their spirituality and their Aboriginal people and their messages.
Yes, and the power places that they have built and left. Yes,
to us.
Yes, that's right. And so last time last week, yes, we started our journey to the Canary Islands, which are really beautiful islands. And those islands are really places we love, so much so that 5 years ago we decided to spend our winter time in Tenerife, which is one of the 8 islands of this archipelago spread in the Atlantic Ocean. And it is more or less the same line as Morocco, the southern part of Morocco.
Latitude, the same latitude.
The same latitude, yes. And so geographically speaking, when we talk about the Canary Islands, we are of course in Africa, but politically speaking, the Canary Islands are under the government of Spain. Actually, they have a lot of independence, a lot of possibility and opportunity to have their own laws. And for example, the VAT is really very, very low on those islands. It's just 6.50. So prices are really very, very good on the Canary Islands. They are, as we said last time, they are volcanic islands. And I said that they are 8 because one small, very small island, which is a real paradise because it is completely untouched, really.
Unspoiled. Natural island.
Yeah, it's La Graciosa, which is north of Lanzarote. And yeah, it has recently
reached the status, official status of politically being an 8th island inhabited. Yes. So they have their own police station and ATM and things.
Yes.
And so it's still under Lanzarote municipality, but it's administration, but it's a municipality on their own, actually.
Yes, yeah. And as we were just saying, we fell in love when we first visited the Canary Islands, and for this reason, as I was saying, we spent part of the year, the winter time, there on the Canary Islands. And so we have researched, we have studied these islands, and we really want to share all the things that we have discovered on these beautiful islands. There's really a lot to be discovered, nature and their history. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very peculiar geographical location, so the climate is incredible, and you can have really so many different natural places on these islands. You can have you have the highest volcanoes in the Europe, so 3,700 meters, but you can have deserts also, you can have the sea, you can have hills, green hills like in Ireland, very, very green hills in La Laguna, and you can have rocky deserts also, and
yeah, there
lava tubes like in the Hawaii.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, lots of different sceneries, really. So
Mm.
last time we actually talked a lot about Tenerife, and tonight we are going to explain something about the other islands of this wonderful archipelago. So let's start. I would say there are already some people connected, and so let's start our journey. Of course, from Europe, it doesn't take a long time to get to the Canary Islands. They are not that far anyway. From Italy, for example, it's a flight that lasts about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. Yeah, so it's really not too far to reach the Canary Islands. And here we have a map showing the 8 islands. You see they are quite small, as you can see, and they stretched, as we were saying, in the Atlantic Ocean, not far from the coast of Morocco.
So we talked about Tenerife, and we are going to talk about La Palma for the start of this evening.
Yes.
Which is on the topmost part of your of this picture on the left.
Yes.
Here it is.
You see.
As we have told the last episode, actually the Aboriginal people of the Canary Islands were very similar from island to island, but they were actually different. So there were different tribes inhabiting the different islands. And here in La Palma, we had the Benahuarites tribes.
Yeah.
Which is different from Tenerife inhabitants, which were called Guanches, and instead, in Fuerteventura and Lanzarote Island, the tribe was the same, which were the Mahones.
Yes, and actually, these people arrived at some point, probably in different waves, but especially during the 5th century BC, they arrived from the coast of Africa. And they were Berbers. And so for this reason, these people were quite tall. They had blonde hair or red hair, yes, clear eyes, because, as we know, the Berbers who inhabited the northern part of Africa, that is the area of, for example, Tunisia, or Libya or Morocco, these people came at a point from the northern part of Europe, and they stopped and settled down in northern Africa. For some reasons, some of these people left the northern part of Africa and stopped on the Canary Islands. So even if they take different names, the origin is exactly the same. Okay, we can go on. Right, and last time we talked about the pyramids that these people around 800 AD started to build on the island of Tenerife. They are still quite mysterious buildings because they are not officially acknowledged by the archaeologists. And most of these pyramids are actually on the island of Tenerife, but one, for example, as you see, can be found on the island of La Palma. These pyramids, not being acknowledged by the official archaeology, are actually abandoned, and this is the case, the one of La Palma. You see that it really looks like a pyramid if you look from a distance. They remind a lot, even if their dimensions are, the size is really much smaller, but they really remind us of the pyramids that we find in Central America. And in a way, we can actually see that the pyramids on the Canary Islands are like a bridge between the pyramids built in Africa and the ones built in America. They are actually smaller, as I was saying, in size, but anyway, very fascinating and built in a very precise way and with a very, very good energy.
Peculiarity about the pyramids in the Canary Islands is that they were built in wide areas, and there were groups of pyramids built in the same area. So in the same sacred area, there could have been up to 7, 8, 9 monuments. It depends on the site and what were used for, actually. And every area had was very well done in a harmonious way with pyramids and other differently shaped buildings and pyramids, and also meadows for their celebrations, for example. And many of these went abandoned, and some of them, especially in Tenerife, were completely destroyed by modernization. Yeah. So they destroyed a very big area in Tenerife for building a new road, and really you cannot really see anything about them, almost anything about that site in the north. But there are different sites, of course. Here in La Palma, there are 2 groups of monuments. This is the one on the coast, which was used for, especially for oracular rituals during the solstices and equinoxes and the special days. And they were celebrating rituals to the sun god, and of course the first day of their year they were used to do these kinds of rituals in order to understand the future of the year.
Oracles were very common. It was a very common practice everywhere in ancient times. Here we have a beautiful view, and again you can see that it really looks like a pyramid. So it is really a pity, in my opinion, that they are not being recognized by the official archaeology. It's really a pity. And here we have a look from a closer look, let's say, and you see the proportion, and you also can see the stairs going up. We have to imagine that there were celebrations right on the top of the pyramid, where the shaman, who had a very important role in these tribes of the Canary Islands, would worship the sun, their most important god, who was called Majek. Majek, yes, that was the name of this god. And again, here you see a view, a look at the stairs going up.
it's also a pity that here you really cannot see very well the area, so I didn't insert a good picture of the area because it's very wild, and the upper part is cultivated, and you cannot distinguish from the photo the other buildings. But actually, when you are there, you can distinguish the other pyramids made in different shapes. Not all the buildings were square, like a typical pyramid. Some of them were rectangular as a base. Some in the north of Tenerife, this site of Icod, where also there was a monument like half amphitheater with steps, of course, and
yeah.
but there's a road, so you really cannot see.
Yes, and you see, the archaeologists claim that this cannot be pyramids because they were, in their opinion, terraces to cultivate. But if you look at the picture on the right, on your right, you can see that it wouldn't be possible to cultivate. How can you cultivate when you have such a short space, you know, and you do not have any soil or anything like that, you know? So I think it's really crazy to think that they are not pyramids, really. But you know, sometimes archaeologists think that because these people, as we were saying last time, lived like in the Neolithic time until the Spanish conquest in the 15th century, they think that they couldn't be able to build such monuments, which again I think it's really crazy to think that because they lived like in the Neolithic time, but because there were no minerals, so they couldn't live in a different way. But
the pyramids in Egypt are 3,000 years older than these ones, and they managed to build it. So
yes,
they were not stupid.
Of course not. Yes. And the energy is really very nice in these pyramids, very balancing energy, like yin and yang, female and male. Anyway, even if they are especially, they were especially built to worship the sun, they have a very balancing energy. Yeah, and here, an amazing place, because La Palma, we have to say, it's such a beautiful island, really with lots of places that are breathtaking. And to these people, the rocks that were like columns, pillars, were actually worshipped. And here on the island of La Palma, we have the Roque Idafe, which is a pillar, so projecting into the sky. And to those people, these pillars were worshipped as being the pillars that could actually sustain the sky, you know. And so there was a special ritual. It's the Spanish who arrived at the point, as we said, in the 15th century BC, telling us about some of the habits of the natives of these islands. They said that every year they would gather there for a special ritual to pray the rock not to fall down in order to sustain the sky, actually. Yes.
These are the reports that Spanish people in later moments of time reported. So they reported actually a very elementary cult, let's say. We really don't know if the cult was
just this one,
or a lot more we think that the real ritual was a lot more complicated, with a denser meaning than only this one, but also this is very important.
Yeah, of course those were sacred places, places where to go and pray. Their spirituality was natural, and for this reason they worshipped the elements of nature. And these islands are really powerful islands because they're volcanic, so the energy is really powerful, and you are confronted with a powerful nature, and so it's understandable that they worshipped such rocks, for example.
There are some petroglyphs chiseled at the base of this rock, which you can see from here, the topmost part of the picture. It's a shame we didn't have time that day to reach that rock, because we already did almost a 6-hour walk to reach this spot, and the rock was even further away from where I've taken this picture.
This is a natural park, and it's just amazing.
Inside one of the biggest volcanic caldera in the world, which is the caldera of Taburiente, and it reaches 2,400 or 2,200 meters high in the highland, and there are a lot of here is the Roque d'Afe.
Yeah, we have to underline here that for ancient civilizations, stones and rocks were really the first thing people all around the planet worshipped, because rocks and stones are hard. It's something that lasts, and so in their natural vision, rocks and stones were the symbol of eternity. Again, something that can last beyond our life, which is actually brief, very short. And so in the ancient cultures, so often we find that they worshipped what in their mind, in their vision, could last. It was an example of symbol of eternity. And here we see this beautiful picture of a completely different kind of landscape. And this is a forest. And it's a forest that we can actually find only here on the Canary Island and Madeira, so very, very few places on Earth. It is a kind of forest that dates back to 65 million years ago, and at a point in those days, Europe had the same kind, was covered with the same kind of forest, but then it disappeared completely. But here on these islands we can still find this very special kind of forest. As you can see, it's really magical. You see these trees, bending, and yeah, it's a magical place, And this is the forest of Zarza Isarzita, that actually hold another special and magical thing. Dozens, I would say, hundreds of petroglyphs, because these people loved to carve the rocks. The rocks that they worshipped, they were also carved with symbols, and sometimes also sorts of writings and yeah,
magical cults and symbols, mysterious shapes, sometimes reminding labyrinths or spirals. Other times they are geometrical. Other times they wrote letters, or other times also natural shapes of animals or of the peoples, like hands, feet, genitals, or fishes, and so there are a lot of different representation. And La Palma Island is the island in the Canary Islands where most part the highest number of this representation has been found, and the best preserved ones are here in La Palma, and the major quantity really of these strange shapes are here in the Zarzai Zarzita site.
Yeah, it's one of the most vibrant places I have actually found. We have found. You wouldn't go away from this place. The energy that you feel, the energy is really amazing. I can't find. Yeah.
Here you can see their sacred spring, and we are going to see here the location of the petroglyphs.
Yeah, some of the petroglyphs were actually carved near these grottos, these caves, and this place is well known as the Sistine Chapel of petroglyphs, and this can tell you how beautiful, of course, they are, because they have been compared to the
other
chapel.
sites. Other sites around the world are not like this. They don't reach the complexity and the number of petroglyphs which we have here. If I remember well, there are 237 something like this petroglyphs carved inside those rocks, all around that grotto and all around this site.
Yeah, so inside this beautiful forest, which already has very special energy. And here we have to say that even the archaeologists in their panels write that here you can actually feel the genius loci, you can actually feel the spirit of the place. It's tangible. Again, here we have some other beautiful carvings.
Yeah, they exactly wrote that as an explanation for why there are so many carvings here. They explained it by thinking that for them this was the most sacred area of whole La Palma, because there were two rivers meeting one together with the other, and this was a very peculiar shamanic indication that the place was especially alive and very strong with life forces emanating from this place. Many ancient cultures thought that when two rivers meet, there are very strange phenomena that was a sacred place. And we also found a sacred spring you saw earlier, and also grotto has its meaning. The cave has the meaning of Mother Earth and Mother Earth's womb, and the inside of a woman, so the womb itself, where life springs out from it. So
Yes.
the cave was a sacred symbol, and the meeting of these two rivers was again another symbol, and this peculiar place had both of them.
Yes.
And so it was really connected to sacredness of life. And the shapes you can see, there are many actually. Usually it is interpreted that spirals are also for us, also for our interpretation, they are energy activators. They are like chakras. They are dimensional gateways. And actually we found out by measuring with dowsing techniques that the spiral petroglyph you saw earlier was an activator, was for the whole site. And other symbols like concentric circles, they are thought to be the representation of a drop of water falling inside a lake or a small pond. So it is again a very strong symbol of femininity, of reception, and of life. These concentric circles, like life expanding in the universe. And labyrinths have also a very elaborate meaning of going inside yourself to find yourself. It really has different complex meanings.
Yeah, and of course these people developed all these symbols by themselves because they actually didn't have really contacts with other people, being so far away from everything. Even if there are some researchers that think that maybe of course these people came from Northern Africa, and we find lots of petroglyphs there and there as well. But sometimes some researchers think that some people might have really even come from maybe Great Britain or the north of France, because we find similar petroglyphs in those areas as well. But who knows? Some mysteries.
And this is the oldest place in the Canary Islands where we can find petroglyphs. So it is very important because of that. They could manage to understand the real developing of this culture in the Canary Islands. And it is a cave for living. They found proofs that they were living here, so it was not really a sacred cave, but we have a lot of petroglyphs on one side of the cave, and because the cave is really very big, probably one area was devoted to living, and the other part maybe was the sacred part of it.
Yes.
We have some cool pictures. And here again,
yeah, you see
other kinds of
petroglyphs. Yes.
Yeah. Some are very difficult to be seen and also to be photographed, because of course the color of the rock is the same. So especially if the carving was used with a very light technique, many times you cannot see the shadows. It also depends on the sun, if it does shadows or not on the carving. Sometimes from the picture it's very difficult to see them. but actually you can see some shapes around
Yes.
circles, concentrical circles. Here also, and here on the top. Here another one, a single circle here.
Some other beautiful ones. Yeah, you see also the spirals. These spirals are beautiful. Yeah, spirals are a very common kind of carving.
I hope you can see my arrow of the computer. I don't know, I'm not sure, but you should see it. And this is very enigmatic.
Yeah. Yeah, you can really see they're very shamanic. They were also used, of course, in rituals. We have to think about it. The shaman had a very important role in these communities. They had a very strong spiritual imprinting, and the shaman had the most important role together with the king, because these tribes had a king governing and ruling. Yes.
Some explanation the archaeologists have done about this, some of these doodles, let's say. Some are really doodles. This one is very fascinating, but
Yes.
you can always see concentrical pattern or labyrinths, or sometimes rivers, like some explanation are also about the photographic effect our eyes can have when looking the sun or while dreaming, which are very shamanic. So archaeologists really say that probably this pattern are reproducing this pattern the eye is doing while dreaming, or when you close your eyes and you watch the sun, you try to see the sun with your eyes closed, you can see geometrical colorful patterns, and this is one of the explanation. So very, very shamanic.
Yeah. Some other here, yeah.
Always from the same site. It's very rich also.
Yeah. And now let's go to see another island, the island of El Hierro. It is a very small island, and here the tribe that inhabited the island was called Bimbace, the Bimbaces. So another name. Right, maybe a question you might have at this point is, are there still native people on the Canary Islands? Of course not, because when the Spanish conquered these islands, many of the inhabitants were made slaves, unfortunately. They had to leave their islands, and most women were compelled, forced to marry the Spanish people, the Spanish nobles that migrated from Spain and came to live on these islands. But still, you can find some people who have in their blood, in their DNA, some part that is connected, still linked with the natives. And some of the people of the Canary Islands actually still feel this strong link with their ancestors, and they believe, they actually think they are indigenous, they are natives of the island. Yeah.
They are also reprising the cults nowadays. They are studying and recovering the old cults of the native.
There is actually a church that was founded some years ago, a church of the community that consider themselves really natives.
So this is another sacred site, the most sacred site of El Hierro Island, the Garoe tree, which is connected again to the waters and to natural spirits. It is carved in a side of this island where all the clouds are coming from the sea because of the dominant winds, trade winds, bringing about clouds and humidity. You have to understand that in the Canary Islands, which are volcanic islands, there are almost no natural springs. That's because they are volcanic. So usually volcanic islands don't have natural springs of underground waters. So how do they live? They manage to understand the natural process from which you could extract water from the clouds. And so they carved this very big island, this very big part of the island, this very big cliff, in order for creating a good spot where to condensate the water, make condense. I don't know in English how the process from which water, gas, vapore acqueo will transform into water form. And so they carved these very big holes under the rocks, under where these trees, very big trees, were living, in order for the plants to make this condense from the leaves and make water out of the clouds, actually.
Yeah, it was a way to really collect the humidity, so coming out from the leaves of these trees.
This is not the original tree, of course. Historical reports say it fell down during an earthquake, if I remember well. And actually the historical tree was a lot bigger than this one. And there was a pool, a very big pool, underneath the tree. And it is said that this tree, the combination of the leaves of this very big tree and the humidity of the rocks and all the pools they carved around this area could give water to drink for the whole year round to the whole number of inhabitants this island of this island. Of course, this is one of the smallest islands in the Canary Islands, so there were not so many inhabitants, but of course it was an incredible sight.
This is still very fascinating. This is what is called the laurel forest, the forest we were talking about before, that you can actually have on these islands because of these winds that create this humidity and allow the trees to grow in such a beautiful way.
This is the general view of the site. You can see these small grotto are full of waters, and this big hole was a natural carved. And this is actually the Garoe sacred tree.
Of course, it was a sacred tree in those days. It was worshipped by the native people of the island. And on this island there is another beautiful ancient site related to petroglyphs. and it is situated in a very, very steep area that you can reach only with a group of people who organize, as you can see, with jeeps. Yes, and so it was quite an adventure. Actually, when we went there, it was a wonderful day. It was really gorgeous, and so we had a view that was really fantastic. You know, so we were a group of people going there to see this sacred area. And here again, you can see some of the petroglyphs. This of the island of El Hierro are one of the most famous petroglyphs, areas of petroglyphs all over the archipelago.
There are a lot of panels here.
Yeah, and some reports the ancient language that was spoken in those days, which is actually a language that is Libyan, the Tafinag, the language that is still spoken nowadays by the Tuareg people. And this makes a connection actually between the Tuareg people and the people who lived on this island.
Here you can see some letters. This is one of the most important sites, not only for petroglyphs, but really for the alphabetical petroglyphs.
Yeah, but the language has never been really understood and translated because it is very old. It is not the language that is being spoken nowadays in Africa, in Northern Africa. And for this reason, we know that the letters are the same as the Tafinag being spoken in Africa, but nobody can translate.
Because the language was developed in a different way.
Yes.
So, like in Greece, nowadays they are using the same alphabet of ancient Greece, but the language is completely
different. And actually, unfortunately, when the Spanish conquered the islands, they didn't care really about preserving the language. Actually, unfortunately, the natives were forced not to speak their language, not to write it, of course, and so it went completely, it disappeared completely, unfortunately. You see, these are all the damages of that period of colonies.
Here is the view of this site. We started the excursion from 1,000 meters on sea level, and we went down with the jeep in a very steep wall, really, of the side of the island until 500 meters. And so, and we also saw a whale from there, actually. Here, as you can see, there's a small monument, probably a small chamber. They really don't know the use of this monument. They called it like a small room to see, to spot things,
observation point,
control point, territorial control point. Yeah,
of course, the view is just fantastic, as you can see the view over the ocean.
And this is the most sacred monument of the area, which can be seen almost all the islands of the Canary Islands. It is called Tagoro, which is literally, let's say, a council hut and sacred room, a meeting room, and a place where common rituals were held, a place where tribunals like decisions were taken, and all the things that were about this population, all the important things and celebrations, decisions were made here.
Yeah, especially decisions.
And also teaching to the younger
the
their
tradition,
traditions,
the myths, the
sacred.
tradition, yeah, the origin, of course, the origin of the people. This is very nicely preserved.
It is usually a rounded monument. This one is a bit not so rounded, but you can see where they could sit in order to speak one in front of the other, and you can have here, you can see the altar, the sacred altar.
Of course, in a beautiful place, you see, actually, I'm just right there, you see, it is really spectacular. So
Really.
they really had a view, gorgeous view. And you see, yeah, you can see how beautiful it is. So usually sacred places are always in wonderful locations. Yes.
Yeah, it really opens your heart to be there and see the openness of this site.
Yeah, and
this is where they sit.
Yeah, and of course I was there. Yeah, I was there trying to feel the energy of the place. Yeah, which is always, of course, higher than usual because they were special places.
And here you can see Felipe.
Yeah, during the day, one of the most, yeah.
The island is inhabited with a lot of these very big crows.
Yeah.
They can reach 1 meter of wings aperture, and there was a tribe of crows there, 20 or 30 exemplar, and the guide, the archaeological guide here made a friend,
yes,
which is this one. He called it
Felipe. We still remember.
Yeah,
it was really amazing, you know, very remarkable. We were actually guided the whole trip, the whole tour. We were guided by
Felipe,
this crow, just like
there were different
shamanic symbol.
There were different stations to see because the site is very big, and every time Felipe was flying on the spot where we were reaching with the jeep, so we could see from the jeep Felipe going there and wait for us for the next station.
This is a very beautiful picture that you took, Enrico. I love it. Yes. Right, we still have some more minutes, so we can start with Gran Canaria, and there we had the tribe of the Canarios. So you see that the shapes of the islands are quite different. This shape is a bit rounded, and so the energy is, even if they're all volcanic, so very strong energy. Here it's a bit more an inward energy, you know, more in. And there are lots of interesting places to be seen here, archaeologically speaking, and the landscape inland is really breathtaking. In this picture, you can see one of their altars. Yeah, Almogaren, they were called by the natives.
Yeah, rock altars.
Rock altars. You see that there are lots of cup marks, very deep carved, and so usually if it rains, you can get water, natural water in there. But of course, they could put water or put milk for their rituals.
Offerings.
Yes, and offerings. Yeah, and this actually really looks like some others that we have seen during our researches in Sardinia. Or I've seen a very similar one, by the way, in Libya, where these people came from. And so it was quite common to carve altars in this way, you know. Probably they were also used for oracles, you know, by using the water and seeing where the water was running. they could also make sorts of predictions. And again, you see that the spot is amazing.
Yeah, really.
Looking at these gorgeous barrancos. And here we have another view, just beautiful.
As you can see, some cap marks are connected by small channels carved. And probably the oracular cards were made by filling some of these cap marks and observing the water or the offering milk, where the milk was going to channel itself to fill the second or third, tertiary, fourth cap mark. So by seeing which path these liquids will take, you could interpret the meaning for the future or the response their gods were giving to them.
Yes. And again, here we also have a rock, a big rock Bentayga in this. This is the name here in Gran Canaria. And yes, again, so we have a pillar of the sky. Look at this, just beautiful. Look again at the proportion, you know. I'm just beneath. Yeah, it's very steep, so it's hard to get there, but again, what a place, what a place.
Here you can see a megalithic wall, very big megalithic wall protecting the area, marking the sacred area.
And of course, this is really like an antenna, so giving a lot of energy to the whole place. That is a place right in the middle of the island, and it's full of gorges, canyons, very deep canyons, very big. So if you look beneath, you see the road, and the road is full of bends. It's so beautiful to drive there and see this landscape.
And here you can see another sacred pillar for them, Roque Nublo. At the top of the right picture.
So you can actually understand why we have fallen in love with the Canary Islands, because they are really spectacular. And here we have another altar that was actually built where the rock is. And you see the
carvings.
The carvings, and again you see the gorges underneath. You see the really very deep cut in the mountains. Amazing place, really.
You can see here two carvings, two circular carvings, probably very big. There are not really
cup marks
because they are too big.
No, they are more like basins.
Yeah, basins.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the word in my mind. And it is said that this alignment, these carvings, are made to calculate different alignments of the sky. Actually, we saw there are some...
Which is actually probable, very likely, because those were considered the pillars of the sky. Yes, and so they also looked for special alignments, as the Spanish archaeoastronomer Juan Belmonte showed in his studies on the islands.
A cave just underneath the altar. And two other shamanic signs we met there.
Yes, two crows. But again, time passes by so quickly, and so we have to leave you, and we will meet again next week, same time, 9 o'clock, and we will, of course, go on with this beautiful trip along the Canary Islands.
Mhm.
So bye for now, and
See
see you
you.
soon next week. Bye, and thanks for watching.